Hi there, Jared Borman here, Instructional Technology Specialist from the Keystone AEA. This little presentation is about what is personalized PD exactly and how it differs from traditional professional development and why personalized PD can actually open up doors for more engaging, more meaningful, and more purposeful professional development for teachers. So some driving questions for this particular little video is, number one, what is personalized PD exactly? And number two, what is the exact model that we're working with when developing this for a whole district? So a quick little story about this is this was the very first image or the quote itself that was presented to me when I sat in my very first professional development as a first year teacher. And everybody around me, of course, thought that was quite hilarious and funny, and shortly after that, we all proceeded to experience just that. We know that the sit and get type of professional development isn't the most effective. So we're trying to move towards a model that gives professional development more meaning for each teacher individually and give back, I think, the most important thing that teachers want, and that is time. So what do we exactly look for in professional development outcomes? And this is based on Guskey's work from 1986. First and foremost, he says this: you have to start with staff development. That is a development where staff is trying to further their own learning in order to have some kind of effect on the students. When you put together staff development and therefore trying to give learning opportunities for the teachers, this is supposed to lead to a change in teacher practice. It's supposed to change how the teacher operates and teaches for different learners at varying levels within the classroom. This is supposed to then lead to, I think, probably the most important step of all, a change in student outcomes. But I would almost insert a specific word in front of that, a positive change with student outcomes. Because really we don't want to negatively affect student outcomes, because then we know that it's not working. So we want to make sure that whatever we are doing, whatever we are looking to integrate or implement in our classroom, the sole purpose and goal is to have a change, a positive change in student outcomes. That then, when we see that positive change happen inside our classroom, now our own teaching beliefs start to change for the better. And hopefully it changes in a way where we can now perform these practices, instructional strategies on a more regular basis, because we see the purpose, we see the benefit, and we see that in our students. However, we see that after study after study after study, going through this whole process, unfortunately, there is a very, very small percentage of teachers that actually get to the change in teacher beliefs with traditional PD, the sit and get, the very inactive, passive type of professional development. However, there is one element that brings the whole process together, and as soon as you add this one element, statistics show that there is a greater percentage of teachers that get to the change in teacher beliefs level, or at least a change in teacher practice level, and that is with a coaching piece. Some kind of instructional coach, tech coach, whatever kind of coach that is within the building, they are a crucial role in getting the teacher from step to step to step and being a support for that teacher throughout the entire journey of professional development. So taking a look here at personalized PD, that really has to be the model that we need to go with, because when teachers own it, when teachers feel like they have the time to develop and integrate it, there is a much greater chance, a much higher percentage of teachers that will actually perform it inside the classroom to the degree that they need to in order to have a positive effect on student outcomes. So what is personalized PD? Well, to talk about personalized PD, we first have to talk about traditional PD. And the traditional PD that we've most likely experienced at one time or another seems or is perceived very top-down, either from an administrator, a curriculum director, from the state, whatever it might be. It feels top-down, which means that there is a reluctance to actually follow through with it. It's actually designed to target a large group. Let's bring everybody into the auditorium, or let's bring everybody to the same area. Let's try to deliver some professional development that targets either a large group or the large group, which is then divided into smaller groups. We know statistically that this type of PD has very little effect on classroom instruction. Teachers often feel, and comes from my own experience when talking and working with teachers, that traditional PD feels like an add-on or extra work, or the phrase that I've heard, just another thing. And they are more inclined to just do it because they have to, not because they believe that it will have a positive effect on student outcomes. It actually needs more time. If you're going to do traditional PD and you are looking to get a whole staff or even a large portion of the staff to change their learning, to change their perceptions, or to change their instructional strategies, it's going to take a lot more time than what it would with the personalized PD model. Also, it has very little effect on student outcomes. We know this statistically because very small percentage of it transfers over to the classroom, so therefore it has a smaller effect on student outcomes. And let's be honest, the effects that it might have is probably very short term. I can think of several PDs off the top of my head where it was a direct focus within the PD, for example, how to gather formative data or formative assessment. Yeah, you have your exit tickets and so on and so forth, and a lot of those were tried out in the classroom, but in most cases it wasn't performed with fidelity. Personalized PD, on the other hand, if you go and read through these bullets, does almost the exact opposite of traditional PD. Because it is targeted for each teacher individually, there is greater buy-in from the teacher because they have ownership of it. So therefore, it feels bottom up, where the ideas are developed from the teacher and then delivered to the administration. Targets individual or small learning groups. Let's say a teacher has a specific learning objective. They've identified a particular weak spot in their classroom where they say, this is really only for my classroom and I need to address this. Then they can attack that by themselves. But if there are other groups or other teachers that have the same type of issue, there is nothing stopping them from coming together as a small group and develop that strategy or that idea as they go along. There's a much higher rate of classroom integration. Teachers feel that it's a tool to replace what's not working. Rather than saying, here's what you're doing inside your classroom, and we're going to take something and we're going to add to it. What personalized PD is saying, analyze your instruction, analyze your classroom. What do you see not working as well as you want it to? What you need to do then is research what would work better and try to integrate that. So we're looking for something that replaces what doesn't work, does not add on. It gives the number one thing that teachers want the most, time. Teachers say they don't have enough of it, and really they do have time, but their time is dictated by other people most of the time. They don't have the time to decide how they want to integrate it, or to even integrate it, or to analyze or reflect on how it's being integrated. All of that time is built into this model. It has a greater effect on student outcomes, and the effects are definitely more long-term. So what some schools do is we want to keep this entire process as simple as possible. When developing a model of personalized PD that can be implemented across an entire school district, it is very important that the process as a whole, from beginning to end, is considered and perceived as simple. And that's what we hope we've done. We want to make sure that the process is easy to manage. Nobody wants to keep track of points if we're gamifying personal or professional development, or keep track of little tiny marks or check marks of any kind. We want something that people can self-manage and use it more like a communication tool and not a management tool, or something where an administrator feels like they have to keep people on track, like a big brother system. And we want to make sure that everybody in the district, from coaches to administrators to staff, everybody is playing a role, and each role relies on the others. So traditionally what has been done, especially from a technology integration standpoint, is we focus a lot on the tech tools, where I come in and I present maybe a specific tech tool. Here's how you use it, and here's how you might use it in the classroom. And then everybody goes off. They might have a chance to work on it. They might have a chance to play with it, but they really don't get the chance to integrate it in their own classroom. So what we're trying to do with the personalized PD model is not put a focus on the tech tools. We're going to make that the lowest denominator. They're off to the side when we need them, when we self-discover that we need them. Instead, we want to get teachers sort of started off on the process of research. Again, taking a look inside your classroom, where are the weak spots? Where are students continuously operating in the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy? Once I've identified that, now I have to research how can I get my students to the upper levels more efficiently, more engagingly, and keep them there as often as possible. Once I've identified that, now I need to look at how do I replace that inside my classroom. That's where we get to the integration phase, where during class time, we are trying to set up this integration of, I've identified this, I'm putting it inside my classroom, I'm trying it out. But in the integration phase, we're also looking at how do I know this is working? So you have to be collecting formative data in some way, which isn't a huge time consumer, but in some very small way, just collecting little bits of information, qualitative information from your students that might let you know if it's working or not. And then once you've decided that it is working, because you have the information from the students, or maybe you've decided that it's not quite working, you have the time now to tweak it, to retool it, to make it work within your classroom. And once you have it solid, once you have it in place, now it's time to go back and reflect on the entire process. What was it you researched? How did you decide to integrate it? Why did you even decide on this particular topic? What did you do to make it work within your classroom? That's all part of the reflection phase. Not only that, you're taking a look at the state teaching standards, because I guarantee that once you get to the reflection phase and you look back at the state teaching standards, you're going to notice that you hit quite a few of them. And we're asking you to also bring those up as well. But we don't want that to be the last stop in this entire process of personalized PD. The last stop, the last phase is going to be share. Now in the reflection phase, you have reflected upon that and you have shared to your district, or at least to your staff, to your fellow peers and colleagues. But the share out phase now is merely taking what you've learned and sharing it somehow outside of your district. In what way have you changed? In what new way do you have a new learning or new understanding? And how can you share that outside your district? With this personalized PD model specifically, we are integrating an extrinsic motivator. Now, the entire process that I just described to you is based on intrinsic motivation. But we want to make sure that with this whole process, there is an external or extrinsic motivator that signifies, or maybe we just want to consider it strictly a signifier of your process and your learning process. On top of that, we want to make sure that this whole setup has some way of sharing and communicating with one another. So utilizing whatever tool it might be in order to clearly communicate with your peers, with your administrators, with your coaches, your learning process, and not only that, keeping track of it. And like I said, we want to make sure we document this, because this is going to be like your portfolio for professional learning. Keeping track of all of that and being able to easily share that learning is going to be really critical in that communication and collaboration with the district. So I really hope that this entire presentation gives you a good overview as far as what we're doing with personalized PD, what it is exactly, and why moving towards it is so important. Thank you.